Chris Harry, senior writer, FloridaGators.com. We were just talking about the Gators' last opponents in March Madness. But, hey, thanks so much for joining us, Chris. Been a long admirer of your work. Thank you so much for some time today.
Thanks. That's very nice of you to say. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Before we get into the Gators, give me your thoughts on the Dan Hurley thing, because, Chris, the winners get to write history, right? You can say whatever you want, but nobody's feeling bad for Dan Hurley after the unprecedented success that they've had the last couple of years. Now you're talking about refereeing, like that's falling on deaf ears now.
Yeah, a good word I think is mercurial. Is that the
mercurial? Yeah, mercurial.
Right? Yeah, but I mean, after the game, Todd Golden said that he and Dan Hurley had a real nice conversation there at midcourt and everything.
Good.
Literally, it must have been like less than 2 minutes later when he had that exchange as he was leaving the floor. But I mean, the guy's nuts. I memean, obviously he's a great coach, and what he did to confuse the Gators and what he made them do defensively, it was a problem for basically 37 minutes, 36 minutes of that game yesterday. So I give him kudos for that. But the other antics, it's funny. I thought he was pretty good at the venue in his press conferences and stuff, and almost kind of showed a different, more humble side of him, certainly in the day before press conferences. But then to see him live and how he behaves on the sidelines and berates the officials, berates his assistants too. You saw that one where he just told him to shut up. And I don't know if how unusual that is per se. Mm-hmm. I will say this: they offered him a lot of money to go coach the Lakers. I'd like to see him try to have that conversation with some of the guys in the NBA.
That ain't working
or something like that. Yeah.
So, that ain't working.
We don't have to worry about him this year, though, right?
You got that
right. Do three rings. He won't be doing that this year, right?
No, sir. So what was it, Chris, of being able to watch it? What was so confusing that had the Gators so flummoxed? And then what were they able to do to right the ship there and come out victorious?
Well, what basketball has evolved to this day and age, Jay, is a lot of just playmaking. UConn is one of the rare teams that actually runs a bunch of actions, designated actions with a lot of cutters, a lot of screening. And when you're a defense that likes to switch everything or 1 through 4 like Florida does, you need to be on your P's and Q's. And if you run it really, really well, you run the risk of getting beat. And that's kind of what happened. And Florida did adjust to it. They got it. They calmed down a little bit. I think it's just in talking to Walter Clayton afterward, number 1 seed pressure is different than other pressure. You feel it in the moment. And when things aren't going your way, and they weren't, and it's a 6-point game, I think it was 6 points, 5 or 6 possessions in the second half. You get a little tighter, you start thinking a little bit more, and it takes a certain kind of competitor to work yourself through that. I think Florida has those guys on this team. They don't have a lot of NCAA tournament winning pedigree, with the exception of Elijah Martin heading into this thing. But they grew up a lot yesterday. And you can go back and look at the teams that have won the national championship the last 20 years. And I guarantee almost every one of them, if not every one of them, had to have a game like that. And that's not saying that I believe Florida's going to win the national championship. They certainly can. They're certainly good enough to. But you have to be able to navigate the high-pressure moments in March, and that was the first one that they hit, because they didn't really get a lot of those in the SEC tournament on the way to their SEC tournament championship a weekend before. But that was the first one, and there's probably going to be a few more.
Yeah, take me through that SEC season for the Gators, because the one game that really sticks out to me, my dad was in town. My mom and dad were in town. We watched the game against Auburn, and it was just like, man, no matter what everybody was like, watch out, this is where Florida's going to come crashing back down to reality. But Chris, it was like like 2 marathon runners, and they just stayed ahead of the pace the entire time. Auburn would catch up. They kept pushing ahead. It was just such a remarkable mental game that they were playing. Like, they're not going to get too down. Oh, they're going to close the gap. We're going to hit our threes. We're going to get back to rebounding and playing defense. I mean, what a crazy year for the SEC with how competitive and how many teams made the tournament, but how well that they played against some of those big teams where, I mean, you're talking about teams that were highly ranked for the entire season.
Yeah, and you got to remember that particular game, that Auburn game, Elijah Martin was a game day scratch. He didn't even play. And they go into the toughest place to play in the country. And I think that has proven out that was probably the best victory in the college basketball season. At one
Agreed.
point, Florida, I think, was up by 21 points in that game.
Mhm.
They had great play off the bench from Thomas Houck, who has been phenomenal. He could have easily been the SEC Sixth Man of the Year. Denzel Aberdeen was excellent in starting that game and playing the role that he played. And I think Walter Clayton had some daggers in that one too. They weren't fazed by that. And a couple of nights later, they went to Mississippi State. It's kind of a trap game because you're coming off this big win, first time you ever beat number one on the road, and now you're going to play the number 22 team in the country on their home floor. Feeling pretty good, chest poked out a little bit. Tie game at halftime, I think, and I think they started 17-0 run in the second half and said goodbye to the Bulldogs in that game. So the way they've handled business this year, it's been a masterful coaching job by not just Todd Golden, but his entire staff. And it's been a really fun and interesting excursion for me to see it all unfold behind the scenes because, frankly, Jay, last year and watching over the summer, you saw it happening. You saw it coming together, and you said, man, this is going to be the best team here in 10 years. It's just a matter of how they're going to kind of keep on meshing together and keep on playing together and see how they handle. Because teams always look good, but once the season starts and the minutes are getting just distributed, how do guys handle that? This team has handled it really, really well. And the guys that have played maybe smaller roles, there hadn't been a whole lot of egos. And, we know who the best players on the teams are, and they usually show up.
It's a great point, Chris, because I feel like you can make that case pretty much for any sport. And you can look at talent on paper, you can look at production, you can look at matchups, you can look at all these different things. But having players that know their roles within a team is one of the most understated things. And you may not know it if you have it, but you sure as hell to know when you don't have it. When you have a guy that thinks he should be a starter, but he's not. When you have a guy that's taking shots that he shouldn't be taking. When a guy thinks he's something that he's really not, and he's not putting forth the best effort to make the team really, play at its highest level. I think a lot of that does go down to coaching and communication, letting guys know this is where you're going to be. This is how you're going to contribute to the team. When did that switch for Todd Golden? Because obviously right now, I mean, he's one of the bells of the ball right now. People look at him like incredible job being able to manage all these different players to get them performing at such an elite level this entire season. When did that change? What's been just how people look at him? Because now he's probably one of the better young coaches in the game. When did that change? Because I know early on there was a little bit of a wait and see mentality. Is he going to be that guy? How is that adjusted? How has it changed? When did that kind of light go off? Like, hey, we got something special here as the head coach.
I'd say his evolution has been year to year because the first year he comes from San Francisco, nobody even knows who he is.
Right.
I've written the longest story I've written since I've been at FloridaGators.com was a story I wrote about him because I was fascinated. You probably know Joey Johnston. I go way, way back, and we dive into some of these stories. We want to talk to I talked to like 15, 18 people about Todd Golden, wrote a 4,000-word story about just trying to try to educate myself. It was probably too long for the readers, but I didn't care. But, I mean, that team was 16-17. He lost his best player, Colin Castleton, late in the year. I think twice during that season they took two of the worst losses in the last 25 years. I think West Virginia beat them up in Portland, and then UConn destroyed them in here in December of that year. But he was 16-17, but he wanted to build a roster the kind of how he constructed it out at University of San Francisco, play two bigs, have bigs who can back up, and then have three scoring guards on the floor at all time, guys who can handle the ball at all time. He didn't have it. He said, we're not doing this again. So he rebuilt, reshuffled to the transfer portal, asked some guys to go, hey, maybe it's better for you if you go somewhere else and play. Right. They brought in Zion Pullen and Tyrese Samuel last year. Those guys are really, really good transfer impact starters who played, but he also brought in Walter Clayton Jr. And, they basically handed the ball and gave him the freedom to do a great deal. But after last season, they didn't play any defense last year. They lost in the NCAA tournament last year, 102-100 to Colorado. At one point in that game, they gave up 11 straight field goals. He said, we're changing this. We're going to make defense as important as a priority as offense is, because I think their offense was a top 15 last year. Defense was 94th. This year, their defense is 11th. Their offense is number 2. That's why they're 32-4.
Right.
They assigned John Andrzejczyk, one of their assistants, to take over the defense. They carved out time every day to work on it. The Gators defensively and overall have been rewarded for it. Obviously, with the production of the team and the wins, John Andrzejczyk has been rewarded for it. He was named head coach of Campbell University last week. So it's a really good staff that's been together at various places along the way. And Todd's always, from the moment he stood on the podium and took the job, he'd said, I'm going to play this way. I'm going to recruit this way. I'm going to look at my analytics, blah, blah. Everything he's done, Jay, everything he said he was going to do, he's done.
Right.
And, it's what he's been able to do in year 3, getting to the Sweet 16 with this particular roster. We're sitting here, we're talking. We haven't really talked that much about Walter Clayton. I'm sure you're going to ask me about him, but what a magnificent run for this team right now today.
All right, yeah, Walter Clayton Jr. That was my next question for sure. When I watch him play, I look at him and I go, "Ooh, you're not like the rest of the guys." Even the guys
That's
on the
right.
other team, the game against Auburn, Broom is out there, and I know people love him. Big body, he does a lot of big things. They got Walter Clayton Jr. and there's certain players, and whether it's collegiate or NBA, guys get in the zone, and it's just like that dude's going to make the shot, whatever. He's going to get to the basket. He's going to lay it in against your best defender. He's going to shoot a 3 from wherever. Like, he's just got that thing about him where it's just like, I am going to be the best player on the court. I know I'm going to be the best player on the court. Get on my back because we're going to win this game. As far as where he ranks, I know it's kind of tough before the season ends, but as far as just purely – and I don't want to take anything away from the back-to-back championship teams, but I feel like, and I could be speaking out of turn, correct me if I'm wrong, the collective was just amazing. Everybody did their part. Corey Brewer did his part with Noah and Horford and all the rest of the guys, Green and everybody. But I feel like singularly, at least in the last 20, 25 years, Walter Clayton Jr. may be the most talented guy. Am I out of turn for saying something like that? Okay.
No, you're not. And depending on what happens the next week or so with this team, people will be comparing this team to that team and everything. But
right.
There's no comparison to the fact that this program had never had a first-team consensus All-American before. Walter Clayton is the first player in Florida basketball history, remarkably, to be so acknowledged. And the thing about it is, since the time he got here, and I mentioned it before, Todd Golden has basically given him the freedom because he knows he's that talented a player. It's amazing, Jay. This guy's from Lake Wales, Florida. He wasn't recruited by anybody in the state of Florida except Jacksonville and Florida Gulf Coast. You got UCF an hour to the east and USF an hour to the west. They didn't sniff the guy. He won back-to-back state. He played at Lake Wales, transferred to Bartow, won back-to-back Class 6A state championships there, and ended up having to go to Iona to play with Rick Pitino. So he comes back home, and people know what they missed now, and what he's done. I mean, look at that in just this postseason. So since the SEC tournament last week and the 2 NCAA tournament games, 47.8% from the floor, 51.1 from 3-point line, 22 of 43, 88% at the free throw line. He's now gotten 2 years. He's got 199 threes, so his next 3 will be 200. That ranks second all time in school history behind one of your 06, 07 guys, Lee Humphrey.
Yeah.
He needed 4 years. He's 236, I believe. He needed 4 years to get there. Walters needed 2 to get 200, and he's still going. So he's been spectacular. And one of the things, Billy Diamond used to say, you're an elite player. You cannot be afraid to fail. That's who the best ones are. Walter Clayton's not afraid to fail. He's taken the big shot. And in the locker room yesterday, we talked to Elijah Martin after those phenomenal, just clutch, pressure-packed threes that he made late in the game when you just had to have those baskets. And Elijah goes, some guys are built for this. He's built for this. Not a lot of people are. And I think that summed it up pretty clearly. Walter Clayton wants it on his shoulders. That doesn't mean he won't defer or maybe pitch a shot to Will Recher or to Elijah or kind of dump into Alex Condon or something. But he knew they needed him to score at that time, and he didn't have a good first half. He had a blistering second half, and it was pretty amazing watching the energy in the building when he was doing it was something to behold.
So what can, because it feels like I think a lot of people are like, it was the sexy pick for all the big names out there. Like Florida's going to be that team. It's Florida. It's Florida. It's Florida. All right. So when you look back at that UConn game, is that a blueprint for how to slow them down? Or is it one of those situations where Dan Hurley, that's kind of how they roll? Not, you can't automatically take a team that's like, all right, we're just going to run a high pick and roll stuff, kick it out to the open threes. That's all we see nowadays, right? So to all of a sudden to have a bunch of, all right, we're going to do all of this off ball screens and we're going to run the Princeton offense out of nowhere. Like that's not, teams can't do that in 3 days, right? You're either that team or you're not. So when you look at these matchups going forward, what is it going to take to beat Florida? Because I feel like if they beat what could be their toughest challenge because of how good a coach Dan Hurley is, like it's just going to take a Herculean performance from somebody else. Like I don't know if necessarily we looked at that UConn game and said that's the blueprint to beat Florida. Right. Do you agree with that?
Well, to your point, you can't change what you do. Right. Okay, so I mean, we're not. You're Maryland. You're not all of a sudden going to go. Maryland is an up and down, plays a lot like Florida does. That's why they're 27-8. They can't all of a sudden say, okay, we're going to try to play turtle ball and try to muck the game up and anything. No, you're not going to do that. In fact, they ended up winning at the buzzer on that McQueen shot last night by 1 point against a Colorado State team that frankly may have been a worse matchup for Florida because of the way they play slow and want to make it a defensive fest. Maryland's going to want to run. Florida wants to run all the time. So this could be an up and down affair. Maryland's a great team, man. I was looking at some of their numbers, really, really impressive. They're a good 3-point shooting team. Florida, one of the best 3-point defense team in the country. UConn I think they missed 21 threes in that game yesterday. They had some open ones too. I don't think Maryland's going to miss a bunch of open ones, but it's an interesting matchup in that it's going to be that kind of up and down affair. I think what Florida may be looking at, I'm just looking at these numbers, the KenPom numbers. Maryland has, I think, 5 players that play at least 70% of the minutes. Okay. Yeah. Florida has barely 3 that play 70% of the minutes. So depth may be a thing. Florida may want to go and pound and run and stuff and see if they can maybe do something with maybe wear them down a little bit. They've been able to do that with teams this year. They certainly were able to do it in the SEC tournament and beating 3 really good teams in about a 50-hour span. But it's going to be a challenge. The rest of there's no bad teams in the field anymore. So the blueprint, I don't think Florida's thinking so much about what the blueprint of Maryland's going to be. They're thinking about we're taking our blueprint to San Francisco and seeing what happens with it.
No doubt about it. Chris Harry, senior writer, FloridaGators.com. Go check him out on Twitter/X Gators. Chris, man, this has been such an incredible discussion. Thank you so much, Chris. It's so nice to finally get a chance to talk to you. I've heard a lot of great things from our mutual friend, Joey Johnston. I joke that he's the historian. If there's ever a book to be written about Tampa Bay sports, I told him that I would type it out for him, and he would just kind of dictate to me for however long it would take. It would probably take hours. Right. He's the maniac.
But he and I did a Bucks history book together.
After
they won the Super Bowl. Oh, yeah.
When was that?
After they won the Super Bowl.
The first
Tales
one?
Tales from the Bucks sidelines.
The first one?
The first Super Bowl. Yeah, excuse me. They have one too. Yeah.
My God. I got it. Can we get it on Amazon?
Yeah, probably for like 10 cents. Yeah.
I'm going to look that up, man. I got to read that, man. That's good stuff. Chris Harry, thank you so much, brother. It's been nice to catch up with you. Enjoy the ride, man. I know, people focus so much on, the players and the coaches and stuff like this, but the guys that write, about these teams, like there's joy to it, man. There is a joy to it because we love sports, and to be able to follow the ups and the downs and the trials and tribulations, to be able to see something magical like what you're seeing right now. Definitely enjoy that yourself, my friend, because you do a heck of a job writing about it. So thank you so much, and talk to you again soon. Have a great rest of your week.
Appreciate you, Jay. Miss the hell out of Tampa. Thanks, man.
All right, pal. You got it. Chris